While many celebrities have been fortunate enough to avoid this massively troubling lifestyle, lots of other now huge names had to literally survive on the streets before amassing their current fame and success. And of course, being forced to live out of home is extremely traumatic, physically, mentally, and emotionally. However, these next stars didn't let their temporary misfortune stop them from chasing their dreams. In fact, even though some appear to have all the riches, power, influence, and fame imaginable, they were once normal like any of us. Here's a deep dive into what they were all doing before that. I'm your host Michaela, let's get into it. Taking our 10th spot is the late Apple co-founder Steve Jobs. Steven's former life was certainly not as shiny or massive as before he successfully marketed the luxurious tech world with one of its biggest brands to currently exist. During his growing period, Steven spent the majority of his life being financially dependent on others for support. Steven faced a lot of challenges in college too. Most times, Steven slept on his friends' floors at night as he wasn't fortunate enough to rent his own dorm. It was during this time when Steven collected Coke bottles to trade them for cash in order to afford decent meals at least once every week. To pull this off, Steven would spend Sunday nights traveling 10 miles across town to eat at his favorite restaurant. But as hard of a life as he formerly had, no doubt, Steven was one of the world's greatest success stories before his 2011 passing. Now, before we jump into number 9, don't forget to like today's Where Are They Now video and hit that subscribe button while you're at it to be a huge hand in helping our small channel grow. Taking our 9th spot is Chris Pratt. Of course, you hear that name and instantly think Guardians of the Galaxy. Trust me, I know. But there was once a time before his admired performances as Peter Quill and Parks and Rec's Andy Dwyer that Chris's life wasn't looking as great. Long before becoming the dinosaur taming legend in Jurassic World or one of MCU's most badass superheroes, Chris was residing in Hawaii as a homeless man. During his time there, he lived by the ocean in a van and waited on tables to make a living. However, while working there, Chris managed to impress a director who in turn immediately handed Chris a copy of his script because he found the younger man to be funny and charming. Chris resultantly relocated back to the mainland and eventually stole the hearts of many. Of course, everything worked out well for Chris as he soon blew up into a megastar. His first acting role came from the film script he received at the restaurant for Cursed Part 3. Taking our 8th spot is Sam Worthington. Sam spent his young life being born and raised in southeast England prior to his Perth, Australian move. In Australia, the actor lived pretty standardly as a bricklayer. However, after he turned 19, he was offered a scholarship interview for Wales's National Institute of Dramatic Arts. He saw the completion of his art program through and later began grabbing small indie roles to kick off his acting career. But these parts weren't enough to pay the bills, so Sam was forced to live in his car. In 2004 though, Sam won Australia's top film award for his work in Somersaults. After this, he was in addition to a David Cameron film and since has also acted in the Terminator series and dived into commercial work too. Not everybody's path is the same, and just because you're in the limelight doesn't mean you still don't have struggles along the way, Sam once said about his former life. Taking our 7th spot is Tyler Perry. Tyler is no doubt one of today's most powerful combinations of producer, film writer, actor, and screenwriter that Hollywood has ever seen. Like others on this list though, his life beforehand was no exception. In Atlanta, Georgia, Tyler suffered from being homeless after moving there to produce his play. He kept $12,000 in his savings and lived in a used car while his show was placed in a local theater. His anticipation for 1,200 people only came to 30 when the show first played, resulting in him losing all his financial savings to the show. Unsuccessfully, his show performed for approximately 7 years between 1992 to 1998. It was during that 7th year, when he lost all hope, that Tyler's work became a sudden hit among audiences alike. His life saw a massive change because he began obtaining valuable feedback from those who attended his play. Shortly after, his success kicked off into what it is now. Because of this, Tyler earned $130 million from 2010 to 2011 according to Forbes. Taking our 6th spot is Djimon Hounsou. Djimon's story is one of an immigrant looking for a better life, simply put. The award-winning creative continues to capture the hearts of many. But before this, the African actor was born in Cotonou, Benin. He relocated to Lyon, France at 13 years old to search for a well-paying occupation. His life there was rather hard though, and eventually Djimon and his brother were forced to quit school, during which they lived out of their home. When he did his United States interview panel, Djimon detailed his journey as an immigrant being massively difficult, and how he needed motivation just to live. He described being homeless for a long duration, where he struggled every day because of how hard it was to keep up with proper necessities. Within his 5th year of living woes, Djimon was spotted by a fashion designer who changed his life. During the early 90s, Djimon starred in music videos for huge stars like Madonna and Janet Jackson. Soon after, the actor began his professional career, eventually obtaining roles in major movies like Guardians of the Galaxy and Blood Diamond. Taking our 5th spot is Dr. Phil. Surprisingly, as someone who many many seek out during hard times, Phil has had some of his own starting out. On his self-titled help show, the host often reflects on the chaotic days of his past life and uses these experiences to help him mentor other people. While doing so, Phil also recounts his journey to mega success. Phil was born in Vinita, Oklahoma as the only boy child in a family of 4. It was this same family that he and his father left because of their financial hardships and lack of resources. Phil and his father found shelter in their car until they managed to afford a YMCA lodge that took people in under a weekly rate. Phil later studied at college under a football scholarship where he eventually discovered his passion for psychology. In summary of his own words, his difficult past allowed him to relate to the struggles of an average human. Taking our 4th spot is David Letterman. David's story of being homeless may surprise you since he's regarded as one of America's most well-known talk show hosts. The comedian got his life start in Indiana, where he was a great admirer of his dad's abilities to take words and make them comical. While still young, David's father suffered a heart attack at 36, however, he fortunately survived the attack. 11 years down the road though, David's father passed away. It was around this time when David pursued his post-secondary studies in broadcasting, later working for his campus WBST Ball State University's radio station. He was briefly fired from here though due to his lack of fondness for classical music. This seemingly sprouted his decision to create his campus radio station, Wago AM 570, eventually landing a career on WNTS AM's radio show as a talk host. His then wife and brother pushed him to relocate to Los Angeles, and it was here that he was forced to sleep in his Chevrolet pickup truck because he lacked funds. While looking for work, David got noticed by Jimmy Walker and in turn received a Starland vocal band show position. David built up his brand and perfected his craft, eventually gaining enough referral work to become NBC's morning show comedian. From here, he was backed by financial support to launch his Late Night with David Letterman talk show, and well, you know the rest. Taking our 3rd spot is Drew Carey. Drew was birthed in Cleveland, Ohio, where his dad passed away at 8 years old. After the sad occurrence, his life began spiraling. Even though he graduated successfully from high school, he was disqualified from attending Kent State University as a junior due to his prior academic performance at the time. Following this occurrence, Drew joined the Marine Corps for 6 years. When he returned, he found himself stuck in Las Vegas on his journey back to Los Angeles. To survive, Drew searched the streets for decent meals while selling his blood for $40. In a sit-down, Drew once recalled that he only ever experienced bad meals, sometimes solely made up of water or poor mac and cheese, while he was homeless. He also mentioned that when he does eat this particular food now, he aims for the expensive kind and adds chicken. According to himself, Drew's success was a direct result of his struggles. Taking our 2nd spot is William Shatner. William's name and face are super recognizable, but many mistake just how tragic his life was before his success unfolded. The then star on the rise was once living out of his home while he started working in the entertainment business. His acting career began, like many others, with smaller roles and normal struggles, prior to him being added to the famous cast of Star Trek, playing Captain Kirk from 1966 to 1969. This addition to the cast scored him big time in Hollywood and is credited for the household name it created. However, the unfortunate news of the cancelled show left esteemed fans with wonders about what William's next move would be, later discovering this to be his divorce. While living in San Fernando Valley, William slept on his truck's camper bed while he worked on advancing his career to support his family. Sometime after the Star Trek films caught their reboot, William was called back to act in his rightful role once more. Taking our 1st spot is Shania Twain. Like a lot of other musicians, Shania's life story pulls interest. The successful musician, who sold more than 85 million records to date, is one of Canada's most successful singer-songwriters. Despite this, she's taken a bumpy road on her trail to success. Born in Windsor, Shania saw her parents divorce. Her mom, Sharon, got married to Jerry Twain, who in turn adopted Shania and her siblings. Their family eventually relocated to northeastern Ontario, where her younger brother was later born, living a rather humbled lifestyle. At the time, Shania's family's income was not enough to make ends meet, with basic necessities like clothing and food, often finding the latter to be scarce. Additionally, Sharon suffered from depression, and in 1979, she and Shania's siblings left Timmins because of their struggles. Eventually, at 10 years old, the musician was able to record her first song, leading to Shania's performance at dive bars until she became the huge star that she is now. That's been today's WATN. Thanks for watching, friends.